As we move forward, thank you, to the new series that we will be doing as a group, I thought that I would give you guys a little bit of a preview of what that series would be like in terms of what our interaction will actually be like. How many here has ever taken a First Principles class before? Quite a bit. So almost half of you, or just a bit, well, people are outside. But yeah, so quite a bit of you have done that already. Now what I'm going to do tonight will not be exactly like the First Principles classes that you guys have done. Obviously because what's going to be expected from you guys when you do the class is for you to do prep work ahead of time. So not just reading the passage, but actually writing down your thoughts before coming to the week. Okay, so I know that's going to be new because I don't know how many of you actually read a passage ahead of time, but basically that's what I'm going to be doing right now for the next 15-20 minutes or so is the prep work that you would normally have done, which is kind of exegesis in a way, kind of looking at the passage, looking at a commentary, scholarly comment about the passage, and then putting down your thoughts about it. And then you're gonna do the application points yourself via the questions. Could you just pass it on? Thanks. Actually, sorry. No, keep it. Sorry, I forgot. Just when I saw that, I forgot what I was going to do. I was actually going to finally teach you guys the Hebrew alphabet, if that's cool with you guys. Is that okay?
No.
Whatever. Do you want to teach it? The biblical Hebrew alphabet, though.
The one on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nah, I'll teach you a song. Oh, no, you probably don't know the song.
No, I don't know the song.
You don't know the song?
Letters.
Okay, so, I haven't done a Hebrew lesson with you guys in like 2 months, 3 months or so. Hopefully you guys still kind of remember the stuff that we talked about. First of all, Hebrew alphabet the Hebrew is written from right to left, right? So that's a very important thing. So when you look at the alphabet, you kind of have to look at it backwards. You're thinking of it backwards. I taught you guys the word melech. Do you guys know what that means? Except for, Melech means king. Yep. And then I also taught you how, I guess, names are made up, which is actually important because we have to look at a name today. Names are made up in the Hebrew alphabet, in the Hebrew language, which is often to put smaller words together, right? So to show that to you, I went through the name Emmanuel, right? So Im means with, Manu means us, El means God. Emmanuel, God is with us, or so on. Okay, we'll see how that works out in another name here when we go through a passage today. Okay. Anyway, you all have a sheet. Did any more sheets?
One extra. I don't think any of us got it.
I think there's enough. Yeah. You can share if you don't. Okay? Alright, so the first word, or the first letter, Aleph. Aleph. Aleph has no sound technically. It's silent. It takes on the name. Technically, that's the word. Technically, it has no sound that we can perceptively make. My Hebrew teacher does a really great attempt at sounding out Aleph, but I'm not going to do it for you guys today. Next one is Beit. No, I really won't. No, and it's not a guttural thing. It's like a really weird thing. It's something with your throat. No, I really don't. I promise you I don't want to do it. No! I've never tried to do it what he does. I can't even think about what he does in my head, but he's done it a couple times. Sure, we'll try that, yeah. All right, next one. Bait. Bait. Bait is an interesting letter. It's one of the letters. It's a special letter in that it can take on two sounds, depending on whether it has a dot in it or not. Okay, so it can be either bait or vait. Bait or vait. Okay. Gimel is the next one. Gimel. Gimel. Okay, Gimel, same thing, except there's no, the way we pronounce it now, we don't change the pronunciation. Yes, what's up? Sorry? They're different. People have different pronunciations. In fact, because I took two different introductory classes to Hebrew, I learned two different pronunciations for everything. Right? So I don't know what I fall into. I forget now. Yeah. So my first Hebrew teacher basically told us that you will pronounce Hebrew for the rest of your life the way your first Hebrew teacher taught you. So you guys will pronounce Hebrew for the rest of your life the way I taught you, which is this right now. Which is also the way my first teacher taught me, so it just, it just goes on. Okay? Aleph, Bet, Bet, Gimel, Dalet is the next one. Dalet. Okay. Also another one of those special letters. This one, for all intents and purposes, doesn't have a change, but sometimes it does. It's either da, with just a hard da, or it's a the. Kind of like a th, but more of a harder d. So da, dalet, or zalet. Okay? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Hey is the next one. Hey. Vav is the next one. Vav. Zion is the next one. Okay. This is one of the cool ones. Next one is a chet. So you say that like Bach, the German ach. Oh, I got some one. So, all right, let's try it again. Chet. Tet is the next one. Yod. All right, Kaf is the next one. Kaf. But again, one of those letters that change pronunciation. So it's either Kaf with a dot in it or Chaf. All right. Lamed is the next one. Lamed. Mem. Nun. Samek. Ayin. Did I miss one?
No, is it Samek?
Samek. Again, just the way I learned it.
It wasn't like Samek.
It probably is.
Okay.
Samek, Ayin. So Ayin is another one of those letters that doesn't really. It's basically silent, but it also has this weird throaty sound that you do with it. No. Ayin, Pei, Sadi, Kuf, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tav. All right, so here's a song. Okay, so you follow that list right there. Okay, it goes like this. So I'll sing it first. I'll sing the first line. You sing it, or you sing it after me, until we get to Sin, Shin, Tav. We sing that all together. Okay? Sin, Shin, Tav, or Sin, Shin, Tav. Okay? All right. So it goes like this. Aleph, Bet, Vet. Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Vav, Zayin, Chet, Det. Yod, Kaf, Kaf. Lamed, Mem, Nun. Samek, Ayin, Pei, Fei. Sadi, Kuf, Resh. Sin, Shin, Tav. All right, let's try it again. Okay, let's try it again. Ready? Aleph, Bet, Vet. Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Vav, Zayin, Het, Det. Yod, Kaf, Kaf. Lamed, Mem, Nun. Samek, Ayin, Pei, Fei. Sadi, Kuf, Resh. Sin, Shin, Tav. All right. That's the alphabet song. That's my favorite alphabet song. There are a whole bunch of different ones. Yep, what's up? Sorry? Because we were going through the Old Testament, and I wanted. It doesn't help in one bit at all. No, it's always helpful. There's some value to it. I'll tell you some other time. Yes, you can look up words now properly, kind of. Because here's the thing: it's all consonants. There's no vowels in there, right? So you have to learn the vowels, which it's kind of complicated. So we're not going to. Next thing I'm going to teach you guys is the Greek alphabet, which is when we start marking. Okay. All right, cool. Let's pray and let's get started. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this night. I thank you for the folks that are gathered here to listen to your word and to study it and to understand it and apply it to their lives, Lord. I pray that you just make things clear in our hearts and our minds. Keep things from my mouth that's not supposed to come out. And I pray, Lord, that you just bless this time we have together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. Judges 17. Let's start here. Verse at a time. One verse each, okay? I'll stop you when I need you, and when I need to. Chapter 17, verse 1.
Front row or back row?
You, buddy.
How many verses do I read?
Just one verse at a time. Keep reading until I actually stop you guys, okay?
Is everyone ready?
All right, let's listen. Oh, come on, hurry up.
I gave Mikey my Bible.
Sorry.
Oh, I was going to do a sword drill. Never mind.
What?
Maybe later. Later.
You do a sword drill.
It doesn't work. I tried it. I was doing it with my iPad when Pastor Bob was doing it, and I still won. Sorry, okay. Let's start.
There was a man of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Micah.
Said to his mother, "The 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, and about which I heard you utter a curse. I have that silver with me. I took it." Then his mother said, "The Lord bless you, my son."
All right, let's stop there. Sorry. Okay, so take two things of note here. First of all, notice the amount of money that he stole from and returned to his to his mother. 1,100 pieces of silver. What does that remind you of? Delilah, that's right. Okay? So we heard last week that Delilah, in order to, when the princess or when the rulers of the Philistines were trying to bribe her into giving up Samson, they offered her 1,100 pieces of silver each, right? Which came up to 5,500 pieces of silver. Now, what Jay said last week still stands true, of course, even though this is 1/5 less than Delilah would have gotten last week. It's still a ridiculous amount of money, right? Crazy amount, much more than any other kind of money that was, or transaction that was given. We see fields, property being sold for 10s, 20s, 30s, right? Pieces of silver. Here we have 1,100. This is a mind-boggling amount of money. Now, I don't actually think that this is Delilah, right? This isn't Delilah that they're talking about, but what the narrator is trying to do here is trying to remind us, right? It's trying to give us kind of a little jolt in our memory of what had just happened, right? Or of what this whole deal is all about. Or maybe of what kind of character this mother has, which is not a very good one, obviously. First of all, she's filthy rich, right? And all of the bad things, quote unquote, that go along with that. But then also, it's likely, kind of just, again, in connection to Delilah, it's likely that this is some sort of ill-gotten wealth, okay? It's probably not legitimately received, okay? Second thing to note, Micah's name. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Micah's name is a short form, right? Kind of like my name, Chris. Although me personally, it's not a short form for me. But Chris is usually a short form for Christopher, which means bearer of the cross, or Christian. Although I don't actually know what Christian means. No, that's just... No, that's just what they were called, right? Is there an actual meaning to it? Anyway.
Christ, doesn't it?
Is it? Okay. Okay, I didn't... Okay, so Micah, back to Micah. Micah is short for Mikayahu, which is built up from three different words. Mi, which is who, ka, like, Yahu, Yahweh. Okay, Mikayahu. So the meaning of that name, although it's shortened, is who is like Yahweh. That's a rhetorical question. Obviously, it's not supposed to be answered. The answer is, well, I mean, it's supposed to be answered only one way. None. Right? There's no one like Yahweh. Now, usually, people are the piousness of the names of people reflect the piousness of the person who named them. Right? In this case, it would have been the mother, and it would seem the mother said, "Blessed be my son by the Lord." Here, it's true, but then we read on. Right? We'll see that it really isn't. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 3.
And he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, I dedicate the silver to the Lord for my son, to make a carved image and a metal image. Now therefore I will restore it to you.
So when he restored the money to his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave it to the silversmith who made it into a carved image and a metal image. And it was in the house of Malachi.
And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons who became his priest.
In those 6 days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
Okay, let's pause there. In those days, right? Not in those 6 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just making sure, because I don't know what translation you have there. Verse 6, that's what it says. Okay. So, I mean, I don't think I have to say anything so that you guys know how absurd this is, right? So first of all, she invokes the name of Yahweh, blessing her son, who apparently stole this money from her, and she just forgives him like that, right? But then she dedicates this money back to Yahweh, but then to do what? To create a carved image for her son, right? There are two ways that you can look at this. If you're kind of being nice to the woman, you can think that she was just a little bit naive, right? So she has wrong theology. She doesn't know what God is like. But then that really isn't what we see here, right? Because first of all, she names her son Mikayahu, who is like Yahweh. So she must have known at least the first commandment, right? That there are to be no other gods like other than Yahweh, right? So why doesn't she know the second commandment, which is to create no graven image, right? So there is something seriously wrong here, where this isn't just someone who has wrong theology, who's someone who's naive, who's just kind of got it wrong. This is someone who knows what is truth and chosen to completely ignore it in this situation, right? In other words, what she's doing really is she is manipulating Yahweh, right? She is invoking his name just for appearances or just to cover her bases. You ever hear people like that, right? I forget. I mean, it's in movies all the time. I pray. Oh no, Homer Simpson. Jesus, Buddha, he spouts off a whole bunch of gods, and he says just to make sure that he has everything covered, right? To make sure that he's good, right? This is really what is most likely happening here with this woman who is completely Canaanized. Remember, right? We're at that point in Israel's history, and yeah, she's just got it wrong. She's trying to manipulate God. At the end of the passage, we're given the reason for this, of course. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. All right? Just want you to understand what that phrase really means for them. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that when we first saw this phrase, he did what was right in his own eyes. That was about who? Samson. The depths of Israel's Canaanization is that Yahweh was taken completely out of the picture, right? That's what I said a couple of weeks ago. And yes, that is still true. In effect, that really is what's happening. Yahweh is completely taken out of the picture. But here we see something even worse going on. It's being taken just a little bit further, right? They just haven't just taken Yahweh completely out of the picture in terms of faith, in terms of understanding who really has control and sovereignty over their lives, but they're kind of they're playing with his name, basically. They're playing with Yahweh's name. They're just using it really for no good purpose. They're using it for their own selfish purposes, right? Paul Washer, I just mentioned him earlier today. Speaking about false teachers, he says, in the name of religion, that's what these guys are doing. In the name of religion, they plan on getting everything their carnal hearts desired. Right? So that's the situation that we see going on here. All right, verse 7.
A young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, who had been living with the clan of Judah, within the clan of Judah.
And the man departed from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn where he could find a place. And as he journeyed, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah.
Where are you from? Micah asked him. He replied, I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I am looking for a place to live.
And Micah said to him, Stay with me and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year and a suit of clothes, and your living. And the Levite went in.
And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man became to him like one of his sons.
And Micah ordained the Levite, and the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah.
Then Micah said, Now I know that the Lord will prosper me, because I have a Levite as priest.
Okay, let's pause there. So, a few things to note. First of all, there's this Levite. Okay, Levite is basically a priest here of the Levite clan, which is the priestly tribe, which is a priestly tribe. The thing is, he is described initially as a young man. Okay, and there's nothing ambiguous about this in the Hebrew, in the English translations. This guy was a young guy. He was me. He was a pastoral intern, right? Yet, despite that, he was called upon by Micah to serve like a quote-unquote father to him, right? A father and a personal priest, or a personal representative between him and God. So just imagine that situation. Think of me being asked by one of your parents, actually. That's probably a good picture. Being asked to be their personal pastor, right? Their personal representative between God. This just goes to illustrate just how upside down the world that they are living in is at this point, right? This little exchange also shows us the opportunistic nature of these, both of these men, right? First of all, the priest, kind of like most of us pastoral interns, they're poor, right? They're looking for jobs, which I'm doing constantly right now, by the way. And so when Micah comes up to him and asks him what he is or where he's from, where are you from? I'm a Levite, right? It's like me. Where are you from? I'm from Scarborough. I'm pastoral intern, right? So he just lays out his whole qualifications there, right? But then Micah turns this around. He's thrilled to find this opportunity being presented to him. We see that at the end, of course, but right now we not really. But he's thrilled at this opportunity. He very quickly propositions this young priest to be his personal priest, right? But then again, so it's already upside down. It's going to be turned even more upside down after that when this young priest, who's supposed to be a father, who's supposed to be a priest over Micah, becomes kind of like one of his sons, right? Right? So you have an upside down situation being turned upside down again, which doesn't make it right. Right? Two wrongs don't make it right. I guess upside down isn't the best the best way of explaining it. This just again shows you the manipulativeness of this family, right? Of Micah and his mom. The priest basically becomes his employee, right? He treats him like one of the family, right? And really, obviously, the purpose of that is to curry his favor, right? He wants him to be treated well so that, well, he'll be treated well before God, right? That's how messed up this situation is in terms of both wrong theology and also just the way they're trying to manipulate the situation with God. Again, the last verse. Now I know that the Lord will prosper me because I have a Levite as a priest. Earlier, though, we read that what does Micah have? A whole bunch of shrines, a whole bunch of graven images, right? What do you think should the priest have done when he saw that? He should have said, well, at least said something about it, or smashed them himself, right? But again, this goes to show you the opportunistic nature of both these people, right? So the priest, being treated well by this guy Micah, says nothing about the shrines. He's an employee. He's hired. He's not going to do anything, basically, to rock the boat at this point, right? Chapter 16. By the way, sorry, 18, sorry. My bad. We're not going to go into 19 today. So if you guys read up to 19, I apologize. We're only going to go to the end of 18. Okay? Chapter 18, there's going to be a change in scenery, but we know that it's still connected to the previous story with the first phrase that we see in the first verse. In those days, there was no king in the land, right? This is what opens the chapter. So what we can really see is that this very short chapter, chapter 17, it's really kind of a prelude or kind of background information to the next chapter, right? So just keep that in mind as we read this, because we're going to read a whole chunk at a time, okay? Basically, there's two parts to it, and we're going to read the whole first part, the whole second part. Okay, so who's next? Chapter 18, verse 1?
In those days, there was no king in Israel, and in those days, the tribe of the people of Dan was seeking for itself an inheritance to dwell in. For until then, no inheritance among the tribes of Israel had fallen to them.
So the people of Dan sent 5 able men from the whole number of their tribe, from Zor and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to explore it. And they said to them, "Go and explore the land." And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and lodged there.
When they were near Micah's house, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. So they turned in there and asked him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? Why are you here?"
He told them what Micah had done for him, and said, "He has hired me, and I am his priest."
Then they said to him, "Please inquire of God to learn whether our journey will be successful."
And the priest said to them, "Go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord."
Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish and saw the people who were there, how they lived in security after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and unsuspecting, lacking nothing, lived in the earth and possessing wealth, and how they were far from the Sidonians and had no dealings with anyone.
When they returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their brothers asked them, "How did you find things?" They answered, "Come on, let's attack them. We have seen that the land is very good. Aren't you going to do something? Don't hesitate to go there and take it over."
When you go, you shall come unto a people secure and to a large land, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no want of anything that is in the earth.
Okay, let's pause there. Just make sure you have that open, because we're going to be going through this passage a little bit. First of all, what do we already know about the Danites? Do you guys remember? Jay kind of covered it again last week. There was, yeah, basically, right? Way back in Judges 1, they're wussies. They're wusses. Right? So way back in chapter 1, we saw the decline, right? There was a list of tribes going after their own inheritance. They're kind of doing less and less than the first tribes that did their conquering, until we hit the Danites, and what happens? They take over the land, but then the Amorites kick them out right away, right? They were sent to the hill country. And so that's why the people of Dan was seeking for itself an inheritance to dwell in, for until then, no inheritance among the tribes of Israel had fallen to them. So, I mean, it's kind of funny, basically, right? Just all of a sudden this story comes up. The Danites are are back here. They're seeking their inheritance that they should have gotten in the first place, right? And we see here what they're going to do to go about getting a place to live, right? First things first, they send spies, right? What does that remind you of? Joshua and Caleb. Basically Joshua and Caleb, because both spy stories that I'm thinking of has to do with them. First, they were spies themselves, part of the 12 spies who went into the land. 10 of them come back and say, no, they're too big, we can't handle them, don't do it. Joshua and Caleb were the minority report, right? They're the ones who said, no, we can't do it, let's go take over the land. Next time, Joshua and Caleb are now the leaders of the Israelites, decide only to send, two spies, right? To make sure there's no craziness that goes on. And finally, those spies come back and say, yes, we can take over the land, right? So this is kind of reminiscent of those stories, but it's almost kind of a parody, right? You know what I'm talking about, like parodies? You take the real thing and you kind of make fun of it. But here, it's not really the real thing, So you take the real thing, you make fun of it, but here, they're not really making fun of the real thing. They're the ones being made fun of. Right? Does that make sense?
Spaceballs.
Yes, something like that. Yes. Sorry, the only parodies I know are like YouTube parodies, but I guess that's a really good one. Yeah, it's Spaceballs too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have a situation where this tribe, who were full of wussies apparently, who couldn't get their own land, coming and trying to get a land of their own, and here we're kind of following a pattern, or kind of following a story, but instead of really following the story, we see it's not really working out too well. Okay? First of all, reason for that is they're spying out not enemies' land, but their own. Right? This is the Ephraimites' land that they're in right now, and they're spying it out. We begin to see here, of course, the seeds of another conflict that we're going to find out a bit later on, next week actually, sorry, not a bit later on. We already saw some parts of it with kind of the internal dissension, the internal conflicts going on within the tribe of, within Israel itself. Next week, when Pastor Jay finishes off Judges, we'll see kind of that being completed. But right now, we just see the seeds of it going on. The spies encounter Micah's Levite, and we see, just like Micah, they took this opportunity to be manipulative themselves, right? They asked the priest, please inquire of God if their journey is going to be successful. Note, it's specifically God that they're asking for, right? Here, they're asking God, Elohim, that's the generic name of God, not Yahweh, which is the personal name of God. But then look at the answer that the priest gives them. Well, it's basically what they want, but it really isn't when you read it carefully, right? He says to them, what is it? Go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord. Does that mean anything? Did he say they're going to succeed? No, he just kind of brushed them off. Right? But they, of course, heard what they wanted to hear, right? And they used that as an excuse to go on their journey. But here we see that the priest's character is really continued to be corrupt, right? Just as in fact, it's probably gotten a little bit more corrupt since he's been in Micah's house, right? Since he became Micah's son. He carefully words this response to the Danites. Again, just so he gives them what they want. And he's manipulating, again, the Yahweh's religion that they have going on here. So the spies go out and they just take this as a permission. This is what you can expect from a people that's been completely Canaanized. Okay, verse 11. Where are we? Sorry, right now?
I think we're on verse 10.
11. 10? Well, the next verse. But when we finish, if we could just curve back in. Okay. Go on.
So is it verse 10 or 11? 11.
It's okay, I got the King James.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get it. So 600 men of the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol, and went up. Oh, okay.
On their way, they set up camp near Kiriath Jearim in Judah. This is why the place west of Kiriath Jearim is called Mahane-dan to this day.
And they passed on from there to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah.
Then the 5 men who had gone to scout the country of Laish said to their brothers, "Do you know that in these houses there an ephod, household gods, a carved image, and a metal image? Now therefore consider what you will do."
They turned aside there and came to the house of the young Levite at the home of Micah and asked him about his welfare.
Now the 600 men and the Danites, armed with their weapons of war, stood by the entrance of the gate.
And the 5 men who had gone to scout out the land went up and entered and took the carved image, the ephod, the household gods, and the metal image, while the priest stood by the entrance of the gate with the 600 men armed with the weapons of war.
And these went into Micah's house and fetched the carved image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then said the priest unto them, What do ye?
And they said to him, Keep quiet, put your hand on your mouth, and come with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be priest to the house of one man, or to be priest to a tribe and clan in Israel?
The priest's heart was glad. He took the ephod and the household gods, and the carved image, and went along with the people.
It's all right. It's all good. We're pausing there anyways.
Yeah.
So I heard the Snickers already. You guys see what happened, right?
No, they're Snickers.
Not from. No, not from. I heard it earlier. It's all good. So just imagine the situation right here. So these 5 men, the 5 spies, they go back to their people. They lead them back to Micah's house, apparently. And big show of force. The big Danites, with their weapons of war, encircle this house of Micah. And they bully this priest around, basically. Okay? This is the best they can do, apparently. But it's just interesting because despite this overwhelming force, I mean, they kind of show what they're like anyways, right? They're pretty vicious people, right? So they tell the priest, while the priest is complaining, they tell him, "Oh, keep quiet, put your hand on your mouth, come in. Is it better for you?" I don't know. What's wrong?
Is it better for you to be the priest
Yeah, I know,
of the
but
house
what-
of one man or the priest of a tribe? Verse 19.
I'm totally missing something here. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I'm jumping here. Sorry, I'm completely messed up here. Okay. Notice that they want the priest to be quiet. So this big show of force, but nonetheless, they don't want Micah to hear that they are there, right? So they're telling the priest, be quiet. They don't want Micah to hear. They're just gonna steal the ephod and the idols and leave. And then they proposition the priests themselves, right? Kind of in the same way as the opportunistic way that Micah has done it himself, which is basically to. It's really funny. One of the I laughed out loud when I read this. One of the commentaries I read said that they're propositioning him to be their pope. I knew you'd appreciate that. So basically, they want, just like how Micah was trying to get the priest to become their father, right? They want the priest to be the same way to them. And again, just going to show you how upside down the situation is, right? They go from they go from the Levite being a father, then a son to Micah. Now here we have an entire tribe of Israel going on and saying, we want you to be priest and father over us, right? As if it wasn't enough that the narrator is telling us or showing us that Micah and his mother were just like everyone else in Israel, right? What did they say? Everyone did what was right in their own eyes after talking about Micah and his mother. Very clear there that despite this story being about Micah and his mother, they're really talking about this whole Israel, the whole of Israel. As if that wasn't enough, they wanted to make sure you understood that this was the regular behavior of all of the Israelites. Here, the whole tribe of Dan is going to turn the world upside down and make this young priest their father, right? So that's what we see going on here. And this is just the absolute proof, basically, that this wasn't confined to just one household, just a couple of messed up people, but the whole people, really, all of them are messed up. Okay? Verse 21.
They turned and started on their way again, placing their children and livestock and possessions in front of them.
When they had gone a distance from the home of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house were called out, and they overtook the people of Dan.
And they shouted to the people of Dan, who turned around and said to Micah, "What is the matter with you, that you have come with such a company?"
And he said, "You take my gods that I made and the priests and go away. And what have I left? How then do you ask me, what is the matter with you?"
And the people of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household."
Then the people of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his house.
Okay, let's pause there. So, it gets really ridiculous at this point, okay? So this tribe, 600 men with their weapons of war, goes to this one man's house, surrounds it, big show of force, steals their god, and then, their gods, plural, and then they leave in an orderly retreat. Notice that, right? They departed, putting the little ones and the livestock and the goods in the front of them, basically so that the 600 men who had the weapons could be behind them, protecting their retreat, basically, right? So, why the show of force if they're just going to run away, right? And we see that, of course, when Micah's house hears about it, the household of Micah hears about it, and they go out and they chase them and they overtake them, right? So the Danites really are, they're just showing their true colors here. They're really kind of this big talk but no, can't talk the talk but can't walk the walk kind of people, right? They're showing what they got, but when it comes down to confrontation, right, they're really just going to run away. But of course, when Micah goes after them, he realizes very quickly that despite the behavior of the Danites, he still doesn't have enough forces to overtake them, right? So that's why he leaves. But before that, he asks this really ridiculous question: "What is the matter with you?" Right? And I don't know about you, but when I hear that question from Micah to these men, it kind of sounds to me like one prisoner asking another prisoner, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you in here? Right? Pretty ridiculous to be judging another person who's really messed up when you're really messed up yourself. Right? That's what's going on here with Micah. But then the Danites, again, so this is what I was getting at before. They're showing their true, they're showing that they're pretty vicious in themselves. They utter this threat: "Do not let your voice be heard among us." Though they're pretty cowardly in their actions, they still realize that they do have this advantage over Micah. And they remind Micah of how brutal they can be. And realizing that Micah has no chance, he just goes and takes off. Okay? Verse 27.
But the people of Dan took what Micah had made and the priest who belonged to him, and they came to Laish, to a people quiet and unsuspecting, and struck them with the edge of the sword and burned the city with fire.
There was no one to rescue them because they lived a long way from Sidon and had no relationship with anyone else. The city was in a valley near Beth Rehob. The Danites rebuilt the city and settled there.
They named it Dan after their ancestor Dan, who was born to Israel, though the city used to be called Laish.
There the Danites set up for themselves the idols, and Jonathan, son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons were priests for the tribe of Dan until the time of the captivity of the land.
So they set up Micah's carved image that he made as long as the house of God was at Shiloh.
Okay. So, the Danites finally get their inheritance. They do what they originally intended to do, which is take over this land, since they didn't get one of themselves. Given that they were driven away the last time they tried to do this. Right? Now, here's the thing. They made absolute sure that they were going to be capable of taking over this place. Right? First of all, they sent the spies. And the spies went and checked it out. And then the narrator is pretty clear that the Danites have taken advantage of the situation so that they could win, right? So the description of the people is quiet and unsuspecting. And then there was the note that there's no deliverer because it was far from Sidon, right? So apparently this place was isolated enough from the real enemies, the Sidonites, so that they wouldn't bother to take it back, right? They're far away enough that they didn't know the people there, or that they really didn't care about it, and they wouldn't really face a real battle with a real enemy, right? Just like how the Danites were dealing with Micah and the Levite, they were opportunistic. They took care to choose a place that to attack that they could hold back, unlike the last time, which when they had done that, they were driven away. It's clear that despite this fact, they were kind of obeying the Lord, right? They were killing the inhabitants of the land, which they were supposed to do. But nevertheless, they really had no divine mandate to do what they had done here, right? They were given the land that they were supposed to take. They were given an inheritance, and they tried to do that. They couldn't do it. So here, they found one for themselves, right, to try to take over it themselves. Then at the end here, we're given, yep.
Sorry, I think it's kind of funny that you say that they were killing everybody in the land, because the whole purpose of them to kill everybody was so that they wouldn't worship their gods. And they're already worshiping their gods. So what's the point?
Yep. Well, for them, I would say it's probably kind of vindication for the last time that they tried it and they were driven back. Then again, it could also show you, again, you just have to remember the kind of this running theme that they kind of knew a little bit of theology. They probably knew God's command for them. Oh, you're supposed to get rid of everyone in the land, right? But at the same time, well, just what you said, they're already worshiping the gods of the land. But despite knowing this right thing, they've missed the bigger picture completely, right? That's unfortunately just the whole situation of this Canaanized people, right? We're throwing this one last bombshell, right? I don't know if you guys picked up on that. Verse 30, yeah. And the people of Dan set up the carved image for themselves, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of Moses, and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the day of the captivity of the land.
Moses must have turned over in his grave.
Yep. So this young Levite that has gone unnamed so far, we have a name for now. And not just a name, we have a descendant list. He is Jonathan, who, by the way, means God provides, or God gives, or Yahweh provides, who is the grandson of Moses, right?
Yeah, but didn't they have the Ten Commandments? Why did they set up the carved images? They weren't available, or
because they weren't good Jews. In fact, they were horrible Jews. Sorry, yeah?
Verse 31, I disregard what he was saying. He says, so they set up Micah's carved image that he made as long as the house of God was at Shiloh. It almost seems like they did that because they were so far from maybe the house of God, so they kind of use it as an excuse.
There are some there's some tensions around that about where the proper house of God is supposed to be. So that's also something that we'll see. Not we won't see, but like if you read through the Old Testament and into the New Testament, you'll continue seeing this kind of controversy of where is the proper house of God, right? Where's the temple supposed to be? Where's the proper house of worship, right? Here it's very clear though that I think that's just a time marker for us. It's not supposed to tell us anything about why they set it up. The fact is they set up graven idols, which they weren't supposed to, right? And it just so happened that it was up there while the house of God was in Shiloh. It's just a temporal marker for us. Okay. It gives us a little bit of problem, right? Because I don't know about you, but my grandfather only died maybe like 10 years ago, and he was pretty young. So, what I'm saying here is, if this guy was was the grandson of Moses, then this story that we have here couldn't have been so far away from the time that they took over the land. Does that make sense? Why is that a problem? Yeah?
Because it wasn't that many years past the original instruction that they have like an excuse to have forgotten it.
Mm-hmm. Probably within 100 years, right? Maybe even less. Of Moses' instruction, of Joshua's instructions, right, to take over the land and to make God their God, right? So we are very close to Joshua dying, to their initial entrance into land, which makes a lot of sense given that the Danites were still sojourning in the land, right? But let's open Judges 2:6. Yep.
Does this throw off the whole cyclical?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
2:6. Judges 2:6. Someone just want to read the whole thing? 6 to 10, sorry. 6 to 10. 2 verses 6 to 10.
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
The death of Joshua. When Joshua dismissed the people of Israel went each to his inheritance to take possession of the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, who did not know the Lord, or the work that he had done for Israel.
Okay. Very clear here what's going on within one generation of Joshua dying. Joshua being pretty much of the same generation as Moses, right? Kind of younger, but still of the same generation. Within the next generation, so Joshua, generation who still remembered Yahweh, new generation, they forgot God already. They forgot Yahweh, right? So apparently, this situation that 2:6 is giving us, 2:6 to 10, doesn't even accept these big names, right? Oh, Jonathan, Yahweh provides, grandson of the great Moses. He wasn't himself immune from being Canaanized, right? Big problem. Because that means none of us are immune, are we? Right? Doesn't matter who you are. If you forget Yahweh, you will lose him. Now, in terms of cyclical, yes, that is also a problem, because basically what we have here is the end of the story sounding a lot like it's supposed to be at the beginning, right? But remember what I told, really hard, this is in September. this is a narrative that was written in such a way, not just to teach us history the way we know history to be, right? As in chronology, proper order, and so on. This is a history that's supposed to teach us a kind of theology as well. The narrator isn't just saying, oh, this is what happened in this time in Israel's history. He's also saying, this is why it happened. This is what you should know about God. This is what you should know about yourself, and so on. Right? And so when we take this book of Judges, and this is a good time to kind of look at it again now, since we're at the end, what you have to remember is, yes, there were cycles. Yes, they were degrading. Right? They were told in such a way, in a certain order, so that it shows you a certain pattern. But that doesn't give you chronology, and that doesn't even give you, I know that there are times, that doesn't even give you specific, it gives you specific places, but they overlap. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that, while after Gideon died, it was definitely Samson. Is it Samson?
Yeah.
No.
Jephthah.
Yeah. It was definitely Jephthah who rose up after him, right? Most likely it was while Gideon was still alive in this regional area in Israel, Jephthah was dealing with these people in another place, right? So there's this kind of there's a situation where these are regional things that are going on. And part of the thing that we wanted to give you, and if you go to the website actually and check this out, check out the map that we have online of where each of the judges were in terms of each other in Israel, right? So these were regional things that were going on, but they're kind of woven together into this grand narrative to teach us something, right? And again, that something was Israel was becoming more and more Canaanized, right? And they were falling down this path, cyclical cycles of more growing apostasy. And here, it just so happens that the narrator has nothing else, no better story to kind of show you how badly it's gone for people of Israel than, we have the grandson of Moses has become himself pretty Canaanized, right? So that's the situation that we have here. That's unfortunately the end of this this passage. Do remember again, there were 2 introductions. That means there's going to be 2 outros, right? This is the first one that closes off one kind of section of the book. Hopefully Jay kind of covers that a little bit more at next week. But if he doesn't, and I'm not trying to push this on you guys, I'm not trying to promote myself in any way, but I do have this paper that I wrote on Judges that gives you a big idea of the whole book, right? So maybe read that and check that out sometime, right? As we are closing off this story, right? Try to see if you can put the pieces together. Try to see if you can give kind of an account of what's gone on. Big picture. In a paragraph, in 5 minutes, can you say what's gone on in this portion of Israel's history, right? And that hopefully will help you. But having said that, do keep in mind what's gone on in this story, because you're going to have to in order to answer the questions that we have.